One of the most important vehicles for BMW is meanwhile the BMW X1, a worldwide bestseller. And now there's a facelift for this one. And here on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars. Today with Thomas, we're going to tell you all about exterior and interior changes here with the X1 facelift. Join us in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go. Interesting production fact, BMW X1 and X2 are the only BMW SUVs that are built in Germany, in Regensburg. All other bigger SUVs are built in Spartanburg in the US. And here the X1 with the facelift, you see it gets a bigger front kidney. All of the new BMW models have become even bigger in this kidney. They don't need more air intake, it's just a design element. Even a lot of them are actually adaptive, that they just open on demand. And also you see here this silver effect on top of it. This one here is the so-called X-line, the contrast crossover-ish look. You also have, for example, an M Sport line that goes more in the sporty direction. So different lines you can pick. Also tell you more about what you can get for which. Here in the lower part of the X line, you get again the silver contrast. The color here is Storm Bay Metallic. It's a very interesting, it's not entirely matte, bright blue, blue-gray mix something. Not super metallic, not super matte, something in between. Very interesting color. Changes also with the headlamp form. They're now more horizontally drawn, daytime running light, and those ones you can see here are the new adaptive LED, 500 euros extra. So this is the newest top spec then you can get for that. They also then adapt to the driving situation, if you steer right and left and so on. So it might be also a good safety option. The length stays at 4 meters 44, 14'5" or 175 inches. And by the way, that's 27 centimeters shorter than the BMW X3. So the X3 is definitely longer, and you can also see the difference here in the hood. This one here with 4-cylinder or even 1 3-cylinder engines and transverse mount has a shorter hood, therefore then also more cabin space on the interior, whereas the X3, for example, also offers performance engines. Recently seen the X3 X4M review with AJ and Jonas there, check it out. And therefore the X3 has also a longer hood and is overall the longer vehicle, but that does not necessarily have much more room on the interior. Very interesting. Here now with the facelift you get some more new stylings. For example, you have new wheels, those ones here 19-inch, the top one starts from 17-inch, here also in a dual color design. The X-line also has contrasting wheel arches here in this plastic crossover look. The same goes for the base model, and then there's also a Sport line and an M Sport line, and then you can also get those wheel arches in the vehicle color to get it a more sporty look. But I actually prefer it in that way. You get a base suspension. Then automatically with the M Sport model you would get a 10 millimeters lower sport suspension. We have tested that one in driving with a pre-facelift. It was too stiff, I think. So either stick with the base suspension or go for the optional adaptive suspension. When you go for the M Sport model, you can also optional go for an adaptive suspension. That one is then as good in comfort. We tested that one, for example, in the new X2 M35i. Also check out that review. The X1 in general, well, it is not a super high SUV. It is something, I think, between a crossover and an SUV. Here with a contrasting rail on the top part. Then again with a somewhat matte chrome here as the contrast around the windows. The side changes are not that effective in the facelift, so it has relatively remained the same. X-Time also with the lower contrast right there. I think that works very well with the color of the vehicle. What do you think, guys, about the design? In the rear, the X1 has a somewhat typically hatch shape, but here in the facelift, the new tail lamps, they have been redesigned, different structure right here for the LED and also more horizontally, so it looks a little bit more modern. Here in the X-Line again, this silver contrast in the lower part, and They use still real exhaust pipes here in the lower part, also very nicely done with the chrome right here around the exhaust. This one is a 20i. I'll soon tell you more about all the engine choices. As I said, this one here is all about the 4-cylinder engines, no big engines available. You can see there's not enough room, and here the transverse mount of the engine. So on the petrol side, you get an 18i 136 horsepower, so that 18i is also a 3-cylinder for the petrols. This one here is the 20i 4-cylinder 2-liter 192 horsepower. Then there's a 25i 231 horsepower, the top petrol engine so far. Then 6.5 seconds is the acceleration figure. And on the diesel side, there's a 16D 116 horsepower. That one is a 3-cylinder actually. Then there's an 18D 150 horsepower, 20D 190 horsepower, and a 25D 231 horsepower. Also about 6.5 seconds is the acceleration. So the top diesel and top petrol equal in horsepower, equal in acceleration. And then there will also be a 25E. This one then will be a plug-in hybrid, petrol plug-in hybrid with supposed to be pure electric range of 50 kilometers, and really looking forward to test that one very soon. Of course, with the facelift, we'll both test the normal engines and also the new PHEV, so look out for that. Interesting that they also have just here in the normal model a stability bar here for the chassis stiffness. AJ explained what the use of that is also in the performance model, so check out the performance review of the X3 and the X4, it was very interesting. Well, and the all-wheel drive concept here, this is a front-wheel driven platform, so you have front-wheel drive from the base models, and as soon as you get either to the higher engines, you have the option, or the top engines always come with all-wheel drive, and the concept then is front plus rear on demand. Also this 20i we see here has also the X-Drive, that's their all-wheel drive brand name. Now to the interior, car key, slim and light, door closing sound. That sounds solid, I like that. Then we have some more new materials for the interior, soft plush here on the top part. Then for example this one here is a matte wood. So very beautiful styling, also soft here. Well, some space at the inside of the doors, not too much. Then this interior here is bright and in this case optional animal skin, but you can also get these in Europe some nice fabric seats, and especially for the sporty variants, for example the M Sport comes with a sport seat with a mix of fabric and Alcantara. I would recommend that if you can get that in your market. In the US you can also get some Sensatec options if you want to be animal free. Then the steering wheel, this one here is the standard steering wheel. There's also an M steering wheel available. This one here would be more, let's say, symmetric and a little bit less sporty, but I actually prefer this classic steering wheel, so to say. You don't have a so high seating position in the X1. This is also a major difference to the X3, for example, which we also had recently again in our review. So here the seating position is not really high SUV-ish. It's a little bit crossover-ish, so a little bit more, a little bit higher than in a classic compact vehicle, but not that high, you know. But it's somewhat also still a good compromise. Steering wheel, either manual or electric control. In this case also manual, like this, but it's actually fine. The seat is electric in this case, also with 2 memory functions. In the front part you can also put a little bit longer. So indeed, if you ask me, I do prefer the little bit higher seating position in an X3, for example, but this one is also somewhat cool and more comfortable than, for example, when you would just compare to a like BMW 1 Series or something. So when I put the seat all the way down, this one here does have a panoramic roof, so it leaves some headroom here with 1.86 m or 6'1". If you leave out the panoramic roof, then you would have even a little bit more headroom. Interior overview, the general layout is a little bit conservative. So you also have a classic climate unit here with some rubber around. This might get a little bit bad over time, I'm afraid. But I think it's still good to have a manual climate unit right there. You can easily reach it while driving. Then, as for the screens, 6.5 or bigger one 8.8, then already with GPS, or this one, the new top one, 10.25 inch with the BMW operating system 6, so also a new iteration. That means also the menu is easier and you also have a touch screen. We'll soon go into details of that. Here again, the nice matte wood, soft touch at the top of the dashboard. New colors for the lower dashboard are also available, so different choices you have then there. And again, a look at the quite compact steering wheel, where on the right side you can control the volume or the voice input, for example. However, this one is not the all-new latest platform by BMW, and therefore you do not get the same version of the software you get in the all-new models, for example in the all-new 1 Series. And therefore you also have still this rather old-school menu, which is sometimes a little bit complicated. You can either do it with touch or with a lower control knob. And then, for example, here, let's go to the map again. The GPS, it's quite fast and has a good overview, but again, the menu structure is still a little bit complicated. Wireless CarPlay is available for that one now, so you can manage the mobile devices and also have the wireless CarPlay, for example, right here. It will be then in this menu right there. So, again, for the X1, it's a nice, good addition, but when you know that something else more modern exists already in the BMW group, then of course you might ask yourself, why? But the problem is when they update the vehicles, they cannot put all the stuff in that are in the all-new vehicles. There's also a new head-up display. It's bigger to see in real life and also doesn't flicker, just on camera here a little bit, with a speed, allowed speed, and also some GPS direction. So a nice option to go for. Instruments, a mix of analog and digital, so-called black panel technology. You can see it gets illuminated like this then. And the real digital part is the screen right there in the middle part. And this one available in 2.7 or here, the bigger one, 5.7 inch. Lower middle console, you can slide this one open and you have adaptive cup holders and one classic USB supply and a 12-volt power supply. This one here is the automatic shifting lever. Next to that you can pick, for example, the Sport mode or the Eco Pro mode. So it depends on the driving modes you have selected. The adaptive suspension will also adaptive for suspension with that then. Then you have still this classic knob. It sounds quite nice also from the feedback. Some hotkeys, for example, access the map and so on. And then here we have another USB, and this one now is USB-C. So yeah, they offer a mix of that actually. And then we have this armrest. You can control the height. And then this one here is where we could put your phone, that it connects to the antenna, but also for inductive charging. The optional panoramic roof, it really goes all over the vehicle, so both in length and width. And this is the shade you can firstly open, and you can also open it completely to... That's really all over the vehicle, isn't it? So, now we can open it up. Take a look at that. Let's see if we can have one more step. Yeah, there we go. And wow, that's really something. So the really exciting part here is the rear compartment of the X1, because it's not a long vehicle, but still you have decent amount of legroom here, even if you drive as a tall driver right there. And again, the X3 does not have significantly more legroom. That's where you can see that this front-wheel drive base concept is actually quite clever. Here with the panoramic roof you still have some headroom left then. Also nice materials here, soft touch at the inside of the doors in the rear, also with a matte wood. And it's a very upright and comfortable seating position here, so I really like that. You also have those latches next to you with all seats, and you can put it a little bit more back, or you can sit a little bit more upright, depending on what you want. Isofix at the outside of the seats. And what's also new with the facelift, in the lower middle console, well, you cannot sit that well in the middle part because you have this all-wheel drive tunnel then, but there are new USB-C devices too for the rear passengers. Probably because, you know, your kids maybe have the more modern phone which already has a USB-C, while you have the old phone which still has the normal USB. So then, some cup holders right there. And you can even just flip the middle part right here. You know, vary it a little bit. Like this. And use this one here, for example, as a ski hatch. Especially important if you live close to the Munich region here. So this rear compartment is actually my highlight of the X1. This hasn't changed with the facelift, but it's still one of the important core elements. And not to forget, you can also slide this bench here 13 centimeters forward and backward in a 2/3, 1/3 split. Yeah, like this won't be the maximum here, the difference. So if you want a little bit more trunk, or maybe you have a child seat here and then you can slide it forward, but then want more trunk there, or just like this split. So at least you are quite flexible. But when I'm sitting here, I would of course always use the most legroom. So the trunk capacity is 505 liters up to 1,550 liters, so that's very well usable. Here the lower compartment is very spacious, so pretty cool for that. Then here you have an even loading sill and quite square dimensions like that. This cover here you can also remove, and I already flipped one of those seats right there, so you see you have not only a 1/3, 2/3 split, but also an individual split if you want so. And if we flip it all the way around, then let's see right here. So this would also be possible. I think this is the configuration that makes the least sense. But the problem is you have to do it everything here from the rear, and I have to push the other seat up again to put that one down. So I think that's a little bit complicated. So now I would have to go to the other side again to release that one. Yeah, and there are no releasing handles here from the trunk area, so that's missing, so to say. Okay, so it takes a while until you have flipped everything down then. But then again, you have a quite nice possibility to store all your things. Also, here on each side, here for example for tension belts, it's a very good solution. And child safety test. Will I get squished? Easy and smooth. So if the engineer for that one is watching, well done. And now to our conclusion for today with the BMW X1 facelift. The most important change is the front. As usual with the facelift, the X1 now looks even stronger with this bigger double kidney, and especially in this silver design, I think that looks pretty fancy. And it also comes closer to the other SUV models then. The general difference still remains the same from the X1 to the X3. This one here a little bit more lower, smaller, crossover-ish. The X3 already has this very high elaborate SUV feeling, but this one here has a better package on the inside. That's also why this one is meanwhile one of the most sold BMW models, in some cases also indeed the overall most sold, depending on the market and depending on the time period, because it is first of all the cheapest BMW SUV, and also it's not so long on the exterior, but it already offers a good package on the interior and also solid build quality. New infotainment system upgrade here, that will also help, especially with the wireless CarPlay, for example. However, it's not the newest 7.0 software system from the new platforms that offer the extensive voice support, for example, and also this even easier menu structure. So that's what you have to live with in this case, but already a good upgrade infotainment system-wise. The question, however, remains if you want to go for all of those options, because here with the 20i X-Line at least 40,000, and with all of the options here we included today, 62,000 euros, this very test vehicle. Yeah, that's very expensive, so my advice would rather be to go for the X1 as an entry SUV into the BMW SUV range, and then also keep it a little bit lower with the options to get a better price performance deal. You know, maybe pick the normal sat-nav with the 8.8-inch screen, stick with the fabric or SensorTech seats, not go for the biggest wheels, not for any other fancy packages, and you still have a quite decent car, because the X1 in general also in our driving review performed quite well. But again, best with the base suspension, or then if you want to go in a high price spec, then the adaptive suspension. So I hope you liked our insight here today with the BMW X1 facelift. Soon we will also drive it for you, of course, and especially looking forward then to the next year when they will also present the plug-in hybrid for this very car. What do you think? Let's discuss the X1 facelift, and also please tune in next time.